I'm sorry, everybody. Apparently my audio was off that entire time, so you guys were just watching me and not hearing anything I was saying, so that's pleasant. Like most of the people in my life. I'm just kidding. Yeah, welcome to the stream. 5 minutes in. Sorry about that. So what we're going to be doing today is doing 2 chapters. We're going to write 2 rough draft chapters in Core Defender. It's a dungeon core I'm working on. And then we are going to write or do some editing and rewriting in Rap, or Reincarnated as a Peasant, which is a web fiction you should be able to find over on Royal Road if you're interested in looking that up. Think of it as a mix of like classic European fantasy with... Oh, what the heck is it called? Oh, that's my dog. As is in most of my videos, you hear my dog. And like cultivation storytelling, all wrapped in an interesting lit RPG world and progression system. So, give me one moment. Sorry. All right. Let me make sure the audio is working. Yep, audio seems to be working good. Cool. All right, let's get going. So, chapter 27, the end of the first wave. Trix. Trix sat on her throne, pouring mana into it in hopes that when the enemy made it to her, she'd be ready. Amidst? How do you... amidst? Is that the right word? I think so. Alright, amidst... All right. It looks like we actually have a real viewer. Hello. Looks like we got Fidget and Echoverse Films. Hello, everybody. Amidst the stuff, yeah, really. Labyrinth traps latest victims in the shifting, darkened labyrinth. It bought her time and whittled the enemy down to a manageable. More manageable. So, Fidget. Fidget is somebody I know from a Discord that I'm a part of. Hi, how you doing? I was going to ask, have you ever considered writing, like publishing for profit, like on Amazon, self-publishing, that kind of thing? I've read some of your stuff. It's pretty good. And hello, Echoverse Films. Not really familiar with your name. If I can ask, who are you over on the Discord? Sorry. It's more a manageable number. Hi, Addie. You guys want to say hi to my dog? Come here, Addie. Ooh, good boy. Come here, bud. Up, up. Addie, no, don't. Come here. Addie, up. Say hi, bud. Say hello, streamers. Just hello. All right. Bella, do you want to say hi? No. I don't know. Oh, hi, Terminator. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm back. My dog was being weird. I don't know what's going on there. Thought she didn't hold out, though she didn't hold out much. I said hope already. She... What's a synonym for hope? She didn't think... I always hate these things. It gets stuck on like one word choice. Okay. Well, so what I'm trying to say here is like she's not holding out much hope that it will do the thing, but she's hoping that it will do the thing. Like whittle down the numbers of the enemy. So I just don't want hope twice, because you end up with what's called an echo, and it's like saying, if I were to say, the dog ran down the hill, the dog bit the bone, the dog brought the bone back, right? There's an echo at the beginning of the bone tasted good, right? You want to avoid using the same word in the same way that close together. Yeah, exactly. So I'm just trying to avoid that if possible. But this is rough draft. I can just... Okay. Didn't hold out much hope. That. All right. Well, I mean, and not every piece of writing has to see the light of day. I have at least, I don't know, 8 or 9 short stories that are nearly finished, and about the equivalent of about 3 books that I've written that'll never see the light of day, probably. Just because they're not up to snuff, and it would take an act of God for me to go back and rewrite them in an acceptable way. But doing them gave me the, I guess, experience I needed to write what I write now. Like, I hit the way I describe it is I hit all the branches falling down the stupid tree. I made all the mistakes. Traps were clever and deadly things. Dark-seeing skirmishers. I'm working on with a friend of mine. That's basically a oh yeah, you mentioned that before. I'm interested. I think I read, or you read a piece of it to me, and I really enjoyed it. It was quite good. Firebombs did little against the heavily resistant armor. Heavily resistant armor and is that my work phone? I never get messages after work. What's going on? Okay, never mind. Just forgot to turn it off. Just an armor orcs carried. And what? I have to look up. I have to look something up. Give me one moment. Doot. Google is my pal. I can't remember what it was called, but they used this thing to fireproof siege engines. It's like animal skins treated with a certain thing, and I'm trying to remember what that thing is. Some kind of oil or something. I guess it's brine and vinegar. That's what they use to soak the animal skins in. Sounds like. Used for sand, rawhides, vinegar and urine soaked hides. Okay, because of the ammonia and okay. Vinegar included salty sources. Burning wood helped to extinguish it. Okay. We will call this. Yes, sorry, you're hearing my dog in the background. So yeah, so like if they had a heavy piece of siege equipment that needed to get up to the walls, they were all pushing together, like say a battering ram, something like that. They would cover it in specially treated hides. It wouldn't make it fireproof, but it would make it fire resistant. And these guys' armor is going to have that. Armor and the brine treated leather shields. Leather and wood shields the orcs carried. Against the carried all the bolts and javelins. What was that? That freaked me out. Sound like a bird. Bird, you know? No? I don't know what's going on there. Freaked me out. Super loud scraping noise. Let's see, we're less than a page in. Come on, Aaron, focus. Better than yesterday. Yesterday when we were all chatting, I got less than a sentence written because we were all chatting so much. I'm already better than yesterday, so that's good. Yeah, the weird scratch. It sounded like there was a bird or something that hit my window. There was a thunk and then scratch. Yeah, we have lots of birds over here, so it could have been. What I'm hoping it was is like a little starling or something that didn't get itself hurt, you know. I just came in for a bad landing kind of deal. Hey, feel free to join, dude. Pull up a document. Start writing with me, man. Tell me what your current project is. Terminator? Orcs slain. Injured in the fighting. Firebombs did little against brine-treated leather and wood shields the orcs carried, while the bolts and javelins rarely puncture through the thick armor. How about through their thick. Armor piercing. Fantasy book to the fantasy Back to the Future right now. Only problem is that I can't figure out the time. Oh man, time travel, dude. It's like, I don't know. Back to the Future 1 is probably the only time travel anything that I've ever enjoyed. Tenet came close to being enjoyable, but it got so weird. And the whole relationship thing with the dad and I don't know. I have never enjoyed time travel stuff. Like, I like to think about it because there's some really interesting ideas that surround time travel. But I don't know, man. I've never had fun reading a time travel book unless it was essentially an isekai or a portal fantasy, where it's like, okay, time travel is happening once, and it's just to get us to our destination, and then that's it, right? It's just to get us into the past where dinosaurs were, or whatever, right? Yeah, I don't know. I've never enjoyed it. It's not my favorite thing in the world. Anytime I see a movie or a book that's like time travel, and I'm like, immediately you have like a -8 on a scale of 10. It's an uphill fight. We'll just put it that way. Oh, very much so. When it's done right, though, which is very rare, but when it's done right, time travel is amazing. It's just so rarely done right. But there are a lot of people that really enjoy that trope, though. Like, it's not, I'm just one dude with an opinion. I have a sense of taste that's my own. And, there's a lot of people out there who will really enjoy a good time travel story. So, one of my favorite versions of time travel stories actually is what they call do-over stories, right? And this is becoming kind of more common in my genre. 3 tennis shoes. Yeah, that's... I actually don't like the author very much. Me and him had a couple run-ins online, and I wish him nothing but good things. But he's a little bit of a judgmental so-and-so. I have characters in my books that swear, just as an example. And he got so indignant that I had characters that swear. He was like, it's just like pornography. You're forcing people who are reading your book to experience what it's like when people swear. And I'm like, no. Yeah, anyway. But I think he's a good dude. I think he's a little bit pretentious when it comes to certain things. He actually almost died in COVID. And I'm so happy he didn't, because I do think he's a good person. I don't wish him any harm. I wish him good health and good writing. And I really, really love the Tennis Shoes Among the Nephites series. That is probably the only series I've ever read where the more I read about it, the more there was time travel involved, the more intrigued I got. I kind of lost track somewhere in my mid-20s with it when he took that big hiatus for health reasons. But anyway, oh yeah, no, he straight up was like, it's exactly like porn, and I'm like, okay, dude. He had an opinion. Let's put it that way. And he would make sure everyone knew it, especially other LDS authors. One of my favorite LDS author is not Brandon Sanderson. I love Brandon Sanderson. He's top 2 or 3 LDS authors ever, right? In my book. But my favorite is actually Larry Correia. He's written in literally every genre I ever want to write in. And he's currently writing a book in my genre. And I'm like squeeing a little bit because he's also going with my publisher. And I'm like, yay! Anyway, he's an amazing guy. Really solid person. Yeah, it's true. What was I saying? But Larry Correia swears all the dang time. I think that guy has more of a potty mouth than a teenager who just moved out of the house and realized that they won't get in trouble for swearing. He was like a cattle farmer and all this other stuff when he was a kid. And then he owned a gun manufacturer for a while. Larry Correia is an intense dude. And he is an amazing writer. He writes some of the best action adventure novels, I think, that any LDS author's ever written. Definitely look up his stuff. At least that I've read anyway. But definitely look his stuff up. He's written traditional fantasy. He's written science fantasy. He's written like noir superhero stuff, which is like freaking cool. Called Hard Magic, which is like one of my favorite things. Yeah. That's one of the things that swearing on a personal level is one of those things that I've had to like learn to curtail. It's like instilled into you as a kid, and then when you become an adult and you grow wings and you kind of go out into the world, it slips in so easily because it's like, are people really this stupid? Just running around in the world. You're like, my parents protected me from this level of stupidity. And it's like, no wonder they were so angry all the time. Anyway. But, yeah, definitely look up Larry Correia's stuff. If you need a good read and you're kind of in between stuff, his stuff is top notch. I'd say I have not read a book of his that was not at least an 8 on a 10 out of 10 scale, right? Probably the worst written book of his was a time travel book. And it's not because of him. It's because of the time travel. I just can't stand time travel. Let's see. Dean Thought. Oh, wait. No, this is from Trix's perspective. Oh, gosh. Okay. I just did a whole thing with... Okay, here's what we're going to do. Focus on the enemy. Here, okay. We're going to move that to where we get Dean's perspective next. Trix. Dean. Trix. Okay. And then... Oh yeah, it's so frustrating. Particularly in a dungeon core, it's super easy to do because the dungeon cores, like the dungeon character, his perspective can literally shift anywhere inside the dungeon at any time, right? So 1 minute he's down in the basement talking to a guy building traps. And then he finishes that conversation, and then, like, the next paragraph, he's all the way at the entrance talking to the guy who runs the souvenir shop or whatever, and trying to discuss prices. And it's like, it's difficult to give a sense of place. So that's one of the things and scale. So that's one of the things I've been trying to do with the perspectives from other characters, is make sure that I give that sense of scale, that sense of time moving forward, and that sense of place using them. Yes, but only briefly. So, yes. So so here at the beginning of the chapter, I list the characters who are going to have POV sections, right? Or point of view sections. So Trix is one character. She's actually a teenage silver dragon who is kind of a goth girl. It's a whole thing. And then there's Dean, who is the actual dungeon core himself. He's an old U.S. Marine who died of a heart attack on our world and then got summoned to another world and has basically built his dungeon based on, like, dragons, because dragons were, like, his favorite thing. And instead of summoning, like, super epic dragons that can defend his lair and all this stuff like what he wanted, he ends up getting a bunch of teenagers to work for him. He's like, really? Son of a gun. Why do I keep having to summon these teenagers to work for me? And then instead of, like, dragons or wyverns and stuff, he starts out working with, like, seriously low-level kobolds, which are basically dogmen that have draconic-ish features. So, like, he starts out the lowest of the low and really, really weak. And by this point, he has some drakes that work for him. He has a couple of actual dragons. Trix is probably his most powerful minion. And she lives in his dungeon, or think dungeon is like dungeon raid, right? Like a raid dungeon from like a RPG. So it's not actually a dungeon like what we would think it from a traditional fantasy perspective, but it's a dungeon as in like, this is my lair kind of a thing. And she works for him. She's like a guard, basically. She's the floor boss, essentially. And people fight and they defeat her or they get defeated by her, and then she respawns and it's a whole thing. But she's a emo teenage silver dragon whose parents were total like diplomats and eloquent speakers and had high hopes for everything and everyone in the world. And she's like, everything sucks. It's not a phase, Mom. And like started doing that whole thing. Anyway. So she basically, in an act of teenage rebellion, went to work for Dean. I really thought, like, okay, how is a guy going to go from super weak to actually having dragons? And the only thing I could think of is teenage rebellion or people that had to, like, basically he becomes kind of an orphanage later on in the thing, where a lot of teenage dragons and younger dragons start coming to him for protection. This is kind of interesting. He puts them to work, but he doesn't put them in danger, if that makes sense. Trix is the oldest, and she's the one that volunteers to actually defend the others. It's a whole thing. And then later we're going to get a red dragon, a teenage boy red dragon. Actually, in a couple of chapters, let's see. Right now we're here. So it'll probably be New Allies, I think, is probably where we're going to get New Allies or New Kid on the Block. I'll have to look at my notes. We're going to get a red dragon teenager who's going to come in when he gets his third floor. And he's going to be the third floor boss. But instead of being this rage monster who's super angry and just filled and super powerful, even as a teenager, he could rip kingdoms apart, right? He's a nerd. His teenage rebellion is he became a book nerd. So, Dean does not get what he expects to get, ever. Let's see. Yeah. He keeps getting misfit teenage dragon children. Yep. So silver dragons in this world are basically storm dragons, but because they're so feared by everyone, they're supposed to be they're good storm dragons. So basically they are a type of, how would I put this? They're the epitome, generally speaking, of that phrase or that saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. That's them. And she is very much not that. She's not a diplomat. She doesn't like to fight. She tried to become a pacifist because her parents refused to, they've tried to force her to learn how to defend herself. She tried to become a pacifist. It's like a whole thing. In every way, she has tried to rebel. And yet, when push comes to shove, she sees the wisdom of her parents. And so she ends up, like here, she's realized that she needs to defend the people below from this invasion that's happening. And so that's why she's preparing to use this throne that she has to basically electrocute this entire wave of enemies that's about to come through. It's supposed to be immune to... starting to edge. Mix, it's active. So. Before the enemy got to her. That's the GOT, right? Got? I swear, sometimes spelling is the bane of my existence. Let me look here. Okay. And then there we go. Dean. Hello, viewers. Looks like we're back to 2. Feel free to say hi in the chat, ask questions, that kind of thing. Right. What's the term? Coordinated. Hi, Holly. How you doing? Just doing some writing. Holly is my sister, everyone. So feel free to say hello. Holly, keep it PG or PG-13, please. I'm just playing with you. Let's see. I'm excited for the weekend. I'm so happy that work is done today. Bah. The other half came from coordinated fire from the skirmishers. Holly, this is Fidget. She's a friend of mine. From a few of the writing Discord servers I'm a part of. Let's see. A few of the attacks did anything. The armor piercing is the only thing keeping my warriors and skirmishers in the fight right now. That is an excellent purchase. Remember to increase that research level more in the future. Okay, that works. Alright, so we got about 2 pages done. See here. This is this one, and then this one. Second wave begins. Okay. Love you too, Holly. Bye bye. Give my love to Raylyn, the little one, and oh God, why is my brain not working? Your boyfriend. Sorry, my brain's just not. Danny, there you go. Give my love to Danny too. Bye. Let's see. Okay. Through the line, or through the entrance. a minute. Getting. Should have listened to the caller ID. It was just a scam. Bah. By the enemy's brutal efficiency. Obeyed. Why is that wrong? The orcs movements. All right, let's see. Where are we at? Well, we're okay. We're almost to 1,000. Usually 2,000 words is 2 to 3 is what I'm looking for in a chapter. So we're about a sixth of the way done with all of today, the stream. Second wave, orcs burst through into the room, and then half the second group, not wave. Do-do-do. Crown of lightning. Oh, what are they called? Streams? No, not streams. I already used arcs. Lines? Lines of lightning? Light streams of plasma. Fidget, or if anybody else is watching, how would you describe lightning other than arcs of lightning? Look up the definition, the description of the 5e spell. Lightning. Get some inspiration from that, just for wording purposes. A stroke of lightning. That is interesting. Stroke of lightning, huh? That is interesting wording. I've never heard lightning called a stroke before. Bolts, streaks, okay. Those I've heard before. That works. Percent. How about isn't 6? Yeah, and that was a weird one. 6 bolts. No, because bolts like imply a single individual ball or something, so we're gonna go streaks. Pure electrical plasma. Three more shot past them and into the I actually have to do math. This is math being part of Lit RPG is one of my least favorite parts. Okay, 3976 times 6 equals 23,000. Okay. Okay, now I have to divide that by 2 equals congratulations, you've gained a level. You are now level. What did I say she was initially? She was level 15, so now she's level, I'm going to say 19. Is that how you spell ozone? I think that's how you spell ozone. Let's see. Oh, there's an E. That's why. It was missing something. Is it Bane, B-A-I-N, or Bane, B-A-N-E? Batman has really screwed me up here. Let's see. Bane versus Bane. No, Bane and Bane are ridiculous. Meaning. B-A-N-E. That's what it is. B-A-N-E. There, yeah, thank you. B-A-N-E. I swear, Batman just... They spell things however they want in comics, and so... It gets screwy sometimes. Let's see... We had Dean, we had Trix, and we had Dean again, and we have Trix again. read the charge. Let's see. Looks like we got 2 watchers. Hello to whoever the new person is. Feel free to say hello in the comments or the chat. And, yeah, hi. We're just writing chapter 27, the end of the first wave of my Dungeon Core book I'm currently working on called Core Defender. So, yeah, welcome to the chat. Blank, but still temporarily blinded by the display. No, wait, white. It looks like we have 3 viewers. Hello, everybody. Feel free to leave a comment in the chat, say hello, or join me in writing if that's what you're planning on doing. We're just getting some work done on Core Defender, which is the first book in the Dungeon Core series I'm currently working on. One thing I'm currently working on is trying to shorten sentences and work on economy of basically the economy of words within each sentence or paragraph. I tend to add in words like perhaps or it's possible or Dean was, perhaps was a perfect example. I just got rid of perhaps here in this sentence. So Dean was the first in the dungeon to recover. Like, I know that as the narrator, as the writer, so I can put that in here because it's just part of the narration, right? If it was Dean thinking about it, I might say perhaps perhaps Dean thought perhaps he was the first one, right? But seeing as I'm making a declarative statement, I can shorten that up and make it flow a little easier. Let's see. Not needing to blank dungeon to recover. Would this be a... No, this would be a tier 3. I may just do one chapter. I'm already kind of flagging here a little bit. Work was hard today. We'll see. You have witnessed Lightning Wave 3. This Tier 3 spell sends a single wave of lightning out from a location of the caster's choosing. Okay. Oh, deep dog smushed. Never back down. Never give up. Never surrender. Yeah, Trix is about ready to go ham on these bad guys. So she threw herself off her throne. Her throne's dais, transforming in midair into her true dragon self. What the heck is the thing called? Let's see. What did I name it? Vault of Infinite Treasures, something like that. Let's see. The Vault of Infinite Riches. Okay. From the... All right, I think that's probably this chapter. A little shorter than I thought it was going to be, but I think Trix being a bad A was acceptable. An acceptable way to end that. 1810. Okay, let's add in. So one thing you'll notice is I don't do it by page. I don't count my progress by page. I count my progress by word count, which is how if you're writing novels, that's generally how you measure kind of length. It's not in pages, but in word count. So in Google, you just go Tools, scroll down to word count, hit that, and words. In this case, 1810. So 1,810 words. Most chapters are between, kind of depending on genre, but most chapters tend to be between 1,500 words and about 3,500 words, kind of in there. If you get over 5,000 words, you should probably split it into 2 or more chapters. The closer you can get to the sweet spot, which is about 2,000 words, and it does depend on kind of what the chapter is about. So like this was a action adventure chapter, right? Or like an action fight scene chapter, so it's going to be a little shorter. Whereas like dialogue chapters where people are talking or having conversations are going to be a little longer. But if you can get around 2,000 to 2,500 words, that's kind of the ideal for most chapters, is what I've kind of discovered over time. At least in my genre. It very easily could be genre specific. Kind of just depends. All right, so that is chapter 27 of Core Defender. Give me 1 second to turn off my second monitor for just a moment while I get into the next thing. So that was chapter 27 of Core Defender. I think we're going to switch to a different project. This project has kind of become a little bit tiring for me, just because I was working on it. Honestly, I was working on it when some really bad life stuff happened. And so, I don't know, my brain's stuck in this place where it's not easy to write, when it actually is rather easy to write, but it's just not wanting me to write that one for some reason. I guess there's some kind of latent trauma or something. But I'm just prepping the next document here real quick. what we might switch over to is... Would you guys rather me work on a noir style urban fantasy set like in between World War I and World War II named Ms. White and the Shadow of New Orleans? Or would you rather me work on a fantasy science fiction? Or no, fantasy cultivation story? Which one would you I guess the question actually comes down to, would you like me to write or would you like me to edit? Which one? It's up to you guys. Feel free to put it in the chat. I'm going to take just a minute. You know, I haven't worked on Shadows of New Orleans for a while. If you guys don't have any preferences... Oh, you want me to edit? Okay. No problem. We can absolutely edit. You want me to edit a fantasy science fiction or fantasy cultivation story or a hard military science fiction? Which would you prefer, Fidget? The military science fiction one? All right, sweet. Let's switch over to that. Let's see. There's Under the Ashes of Empire, which I only have a little done, so that doesn't really need editing. There's As the Phoenix Falls, 1 and 2. Let's do As the Phoenix Falls. We'll look at number 2 here. Alright, so here's As the Phoenix Falls. I'm actually going to read this. Oh, that's a book cover you guys don't need to see. Here we go. So I'm going to read this as we go through. This kind of how I edit to make sure that it flows. When I'm not writing, I edit. So this way, I do my first initial edit through. So we're going to start chapter 1. Chapter 1. I was just a kid. Current date 2282 AD, 126 APC, after the start of the Prolong Crisis. Ready up, Lieutenant Darnell shouted into my ear through the communications suite in my suit. Dropping 4, my virtual intelligence acknowledged. There we go. We're going to break that up so there's not like this confusion as to who's speaking. My virtual intelligence acknowledged I was ready and a counter appeared in my heads-up display. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. Or 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. My suit shook as the inside of the marine pod bay disappeared from my external displays. Replaced with blackness. Let me make sure that's not. Replaced with blackness, twinkling stars, and directly below my feet, the green and tan ball of Caliph 3. Status reports now, Darnell demanded, and everyone chimed in. Green and tan? Yeah, green and tan ball. That's right. Eventually, it was my turn. Brown ready, sir. My pod shook as my helmet flashed a projection on the wall. What it showed was a little more than cobbled together data from various sources, like my pod's external sensors. What I saw made my heart race. The 2 planetary defense cruisers the Caliph system had were... is that the right word? Duking? Define duking. To fight. Okay, yeah. Duke, like, duking it out. Okay. Duking it out with the massive dreadnought us Marines had hitched a ride on. The two cruisers, one light and one heavy, stood little chance against the behemoth that had our back. The Phoenix had been built to be a fleet unto itself, with enough armor, shielding, and dual hulls, artificial gravity suites, and enough counter with armor, with battleship thick armor, shielding, and dual hulls, artificial gravity suites, and enough counterfire to take a battleship head on. Let's call it a battle cruiser. Battle cruiser, because battle cruisers have the same, and the same firepower generally as a battleship, and we avoid the repeat. Battle cruiser head on with little difficulty. I doubted the Phoenix or her crew would take any real casualties. Of course, we weren't inside the Phoenix just then. We were outside. Here's another thing I try and do. Excuse me. I try and do. What's it called? When I'm editing, is I want to make sure that the page is easily readable. So when there's a particular point I want to make, or when I think that too many paragraphs are roughly the same size, so like we have this one, and this one that are progressively larger, but they're roughly the same size. So then we go with the short one. And we get 3 again, then we get 4, then 1 and a little bit. Then 3, then 3. So it makes it easier to read if they're all different sizes, right? It's kind of the idea. Hurting? It should be hurtling. Is that not the right word? Let's define hurtling. To move or cause a great speed. Yeah, that's the right word then. We are good. Okay. Of course, we weren't inside the Phoenix just then. We were outside in the black, hurtling through empty space on a semi-ballistic trajectory for a landing zone just outside Caliph 3's main spaceport and capital city. Our asses hanging out in the dark for everyone and God to see. Darnell kept up with the rotation of status reports from the people in our platoon until traditional radio chatter became a virtual impossibility inside the upper atmosphere as it burned against our hulls. The pod grew hot, but the coolant systems inside the pod and my suit kept me from getting cooked alive. The fire cone disappeared with a familiar machine voice, and a familiar machine voice filled my ears. Prep for re-entry burn in 3, 2, 1. I bent my knees. Let's see. Nope. Sure. Just. Yeah, we don't worry about that. I bent my knees. That's what they teach you to do. Bend your knees. The lock bar and straps are supposed to keep you in place, hold you, so that the re-entry Gs don't flatten you or snap your legs like twigs. But they also tell you to bend your knees, because sometimes straps break. Sometimes the bar didn't quite lock all the way, and sometimes you've put on a few pounds without anyone noticing, and the computer hasn't properly adjusted. If any of those things happen, no, so it's not the Book of Mormon sci-fi. It's a military science fiction I've been working on for way longer than the Book of Mormon one, but it has the same feel to it because I'm writing in that same genre, kind of that same feel, right? It's my voice, is my author voice in this genre. So if you read this, if you read the same author in the same genre for multiple series, you end up kind of getting a feel for their voice And there are a couple authors, for instance, I can just tell who they are by reading it. It's interesting you picked up on mine so quickly. Like that's not normal. Good job. Like that means you have a particular ear for voice. It's very interesting. But yeah. If any of those things happen, your locked knees would shatter under that much pressure, even with the servos in your armor trying their best to compensate. So I bent my knees, just in case. The pressure was intense, and I did my best not to grit my teeth. I lost more than one molar that way, and the regrows typically took all of my hazard pay from drops like this. Oh, sure, free dental work is a perk of the job, but regrows of things like teeth were all you need when all you need is a cheap veneer or some dentures. Let me make sure that's the right word I'm intending. Okay, let's look up Google. Denture. Wrong thing. Denture. Denture. Dentures. I misspelled it. That's why. Okay. Dentures, in order to eat, are considered elective procedures. Let me just read that again. But regrows of things like teeth, when all you need is a cheap veneer or some dentures in order to eat, are considered elective procedures. You can thank the good old Legion Command for that. Not for the first time I regretted joining the Navy. They didn't have to waste their hazard pay on fixing. I regretted not joining the Navy. They didn't have to waste their hazard pay on fixing teeth. Landing chutes deployed, the VI said into my ear, and I felt the pressure decrease as the chutes created drag and slowed us down. Final landing. Final landing jet will activate in 2, 1. I felt the pressure spike as the last bit of fuel in my pod was expended, trying to get me down to a safe velocity. Crashed into the ground, but I barely felt it. The inertial dampen... How about if we broke it like that? There we go, because it's like yeah, okay, breaking that up. The internal dampener is activated just before the end, using up the last bit of electricity in the pod to keep me alive. The bar lifted on its own, and I reached a hand up and hit a button that undid the straps. I dropped a few inches onto the main floor of the pod, my feet clanging as the door exploded outwards. The door flattened an area in front of the pod, leaving a dirt ramp for me to ascend out of the crater my landing had made on impact. How about... This is just a little wordy. Okay, I'm gonna... Wordy. See what I'll do if I don't know how to rephrase it yet, but I know what needs to happen is I'll add a little comment here and I'll move on so that I don't lose my momentum. Music hit my ears as I climbed to the top of the rim. The Muslim call to prayer was being sung over every loudspeaker in the entire port city, and dozens of people I could see were bowed to the ground, heeding the call. Bowing to the ground. That's fine. It's an active word. Brown, you good? It was the voice of Specialist Donahue, a friend, our squad's heavy weapons specialist and my battle buddy. He came up beside me as I watched the people pray. Is that the right word? Who's define? Address, solemn request, expression. Okay, yeah, that's the right word. See how most of them pray towards the control tower? It was at that moment I realized there were distinct groups of people. One group prayed facing the elevator tower. The other prayed facing away from the tower at the center of the spaceport. Yeah, what of it? The ones praying towards the tower see the tower as the spiritual center of the colony and the main transport home towards Mecca, where they're supposed to pray towards. The others think they shouldn't pray to something they helped make, so they pray facing away from it, honoring their tradition of praying oriented towards Mecca, while showing humility to God about the things they themselves helped build. And what about them? I asked, pointing towards a group of men in black robes who seemed to be praying standing up and towards each other. After a moment, one turned an old-fashioned Gen 2 smart One turned with an old-fashioned Gen 2 smart RPG. Period. He shouldered and aimed it at my pod. Donahue lifted his heavy Gauss cannon and put 6 precision rounds downrange before I could even lift my rifle. The threat was eliminated, and he leaned in as if to whisper a secret to me. You see anyone praying in any other direction, they're the bad guys. Shoot first. Don't ask questions. Didn't you read the mission brief? Yeah, but what direction they pray in? Yeah, but what direction they pray in really matters that much? Okay, we don't need that. He chuckled before he put a small crescent from around his neck on the outside of his suit, kissed it, touched his forehead, and then lifted his hand towards the sky. It matters more than you know. Some of my Islamic brothers are not as peaceful as I am. He chuckled as we rejoined our squad. Before we could reestablish a battle net between the suits, and the call ended, and warning sirens filled the air. Next scene. What do you think so far of the story? Fidget? If you have any thoughts on it, I'd really like the action, the pacing, anything like that. Any thoughts that just you can throw out if you want. All right, next scene. 89 years ago, 2193 AD, 37 APC. I was 9 when the sirens in my hometown sounded for the first time. I was a kid, living with my mom and 2 sisters in a 2-bedroom trailer propped up by plywood with cardboard over one broken window. I remember sitting there on our thrift store special couch, listening to my mother talking with one of the local volunteers from the tracking station. They were going door to door. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad. Because this is like chapter 1, right? So there's like supposed to be a lot of questions. That's good. They were going door to door to warn people in the Lowlies. The Lowlies, officially named the Lily Pad, was a small, poor, run-down trailer park we rented our house in. Mom had to pay rent twice on the damn thing, once to the house owner, and again to the landlord who kept jacking up the lot rents just because she could. But the deposit was 0, so we were able to get into the trailer despite my mom's bad social and financial credit score. In some ways it was a blessing, a place we found some stability, and the Lowlies had a kind of social structure. If you were from the Lowlies, you watched each other's backs, because no one else, especially the landlord, would. Getting in was an easy blessing. Staying was a nightmare, and getting out proved nearly impossible. We called the shifty trailer park the Lowlies on the count of it sitting in a small slot canyon on the outskirts of rural Vernal, Utah. Yes, I know, this is where I live. The city I live in, anyway. I could tell at one point it had been a pretty place. It had a small river that ran next to it, and someone at one point in history had put up a gravel walking trail. Disused puppy potty stalls, whose paint was rusted through and whose bags were long gone, still littered the trail in some places, testament to what it used to be, what it could have been had someone cared enough. Pretty once, but not anymore. It was also low geographically. There was only one way in and out of that excuse my language, but shitty place. A one-lane road that went up and out, or down and in, depending on what time of day it was. See what I mean? I do use the occasional swear word, but it's not, I try not to overburden it. It's mainly meant because the character would swear, right? And we're in his head, getting his perspective. The volunteer handed Mom a pamphlet that had a picture I later learned meant toxin. Why is it meant toxin? Does it have to be italicized? No. Okay. On the back of the pamphlet my mother handed back to me was the phone number for poison control, the police, and a map of the local hospital. We'll stay indoors tonight. I just changed the filter. We should be okay. My mom's voice was that of a soprano. And just like the place we lived, she had been beautiful. Once. Lack of care and abuse had made her hair lose its luster and her eyes their drive and wanderlust. I didn't know exactly what was wrong with my mother, not at the age of 9, but I knew something was up. The world had been hard on her, though how exactly escaped me until much later. I also knew that she loved us and worked like a dog to provide for me and my 2 younger sisters. I don't think you understand. If you're going to survive this, you'll need to seal off your entire house. Cracks in doors, windows, and floorboards. Everything, the volunteer said. Mother lowered her voice. I know, but where are we going to go? The shelter don't have no more room, and the tribe stopped taking white folk in. I'll crank the filter and we'll sleep next to it. Best we can do. My mother went to shut the door, but the black volunteer put her foot in the door and stopped her. Wait. She fished in her purse and pulled out a long tube of something. I wasn't sure what it was. Here's some spray foam caulk. It should help. Remember, doors, windows, and floorboards. If this fog falls down, then seeps up from the ground. Mom took it and looked at the how-to pictures on the back of the bottle. Thank you. But what if this happens again? It's acidic, right? On the radio, they said it was like battery acid. Won't it chew through caulk like this? Long term, yeah. But this should hold up for tonight. Tomorrow, you can find a way to buy some more. You and your kids stay safe. We'll be back tomorrow to help where we can. The woman left, and my mom and I sat on the couch and watched my favorite cartoon. After a few minutes, my mother got up and checked on my 2 sisters, who had been playing in their shared room. She ushered them into the living room, where we all laid out our sleeping bags, heads closest to the large filter that spat out clean, fresh air for the whole house. Then she went about doing her best to seal the house off. Meanwhile, my sisters and I watched some cartoons that, looking back, had way too much violence. I'm just adding a little bit of my own childhood there. About the time the cartoon finished, the sirens filled the air. They rattled the windows. That's what I remember. My sisters both say that first night it was like the world was ending. But me, I thought the whole thing was kind of fun. Mom turned off the TV. Okay, I'll keep that there as a note. Mom turned off the TV, and we ate marshmallows and the chocolate bars we got from the food pantry every few weeks. Mom usually had us save the chocolate for Sundays after church, and the marshmallows for cookouts with our cousins once a month. But that night was an exception. I now know she must have wanted us to have the best night she could give us. There was so much fear back then. Fear of the poisoned fog, fear of the cities, fear of the mobs, and fear of starving. So much fear as the world was doing its best to die. But that night we ate chocolate, and we got to stay up as late as we wanted. We played board games with missing pieces replaced with squares of cardboard, and Mom told us stories from one of the books she used to read when she was back in school. It was about a knight who fought dragons that turned out to be windmills. The knight was brave, and only with his young friend pointing him in the right direction was able to fight actual monsters. That's the one that stuck with me, though if you asked my sisters, they'd probably remember one of the other stories my mom told that night. But the knight, his companion, and the windmills, that struck a chord with me for some reason. I drew pictures of knights fighting dragons, saving princesses, and dueling for honor. I played a knight fighting against an invisible foe while my sisters brushed their doll's hair before bed. I fell in love with the story, and I wanted to be a brave knight with every ounce of my 9-year-old heart. When we finally went to bed, I dreamed of fighting monsters and saving villages from fire-breathing lizards. I don't know why that was highlighted. This is why we do this. We edit through and we catch things with, notes or whatnot that we don't need anymore. We survived that night. In fact, only one house in the entire park had a breach, and they had been visiting family. No one died. No one even got hurt. For the next week, there was an air of relief. The fog had come, and no one had died. The accounts of the cities where thousands died every night to the fog must have been exaggerations, or the people in the cities just didn't know how to take care of one another. That's what people in the lowlies said, anyway, trying to put a happy spin on the fact the fog had reached us, and that it might be coming back. A few days after the incident, Greaves, the landlord's property manager, had to come fix our water pump. So, FYI, part of this it is not graphic, but there is a slight, while I'm editing this one. Yeah, I love Don Quixote. He's great. There is a little bit of there is allusion to essay in this chapter. I just want to make sure you're aware, as we're editing through, okay? It is in no way graphic or explicitly spelled out, but you understand what has happened, right? He was grumpy the entire time he was there. Well, I can't get it to work, he finally said, admitting defeat as he stood in our living room with the floorboards pried back and the water pump to the deep aquifer well exposed. What does that mean? Mom asked, as me and my sisters played with our toys on the kitchen tile. I had some army men who were trying to fight off the evil depredations of a pink unicorn who had been casting dangerous spells. My sister's unicorn was trying to heal my men, or so my sister said, but Sergeant Johnson, the leader of my soldiers, just didn't trust anything that pink and cute. Not unless it was army issued. It means I'll have to see if I can scrounge another one up for you. If I can't, the lot may have to close, at least for a bit. I don't have enough money in the budget for a new one. Besides, going all the way into town to get one would be another massive stress in my life. He stopped talking and looked my mother over. Not unless I could find some stress relief. Yeah, this is that scene. Heads up. Kids, my mom's voice was firm, and we all looked up from our game. Go outside and play with Ms. Tanner's kids from down the spoke. Me and Mr. Greaves need to have a grown-up chat. But Sparkle just finished making breakfast, Amber complained. Now. My mother very rarely raised her voice, but when she did, we listened. We left and went and played at Miss Tanner's house. She welcomed us in and even gave us some cookies. They weren't very good, but they were better than an empty stomach. We eventually went outside, and Miss Tanner took us to the central community building, where the older folk went to play board games and talk about old times, while us younger people died of boredom. Tucked away in one corner was a small office chair that us kids liked to spin on. Kids, you need to stay away from Mr. Greaves' desk, Miss Tanner told us, and our game ended. What does this say, Ms. Tanner? I asked, lifting a large leather booklet off Greaves' desk. She took it in her hands and sounded out the letters. Many of the adults, just like us kids in the lowlies, couldn't read very well. Tanner was a C- grade, meaning she could work public jobs, but that didn't mean she had the skills for it. Reading was hard for her, as both her parents were graded D before they died, leaving her unable to go to school. Miss Tanner was younger than Mom by a few years, I think, but she looked old then, her face screwed up as she tried to read the letters on the front of the book. Maintenance ledger, I think. It's a lot of letters, kid. Come on, let's leave the landlord's desk alone. It took nearly 2 hours for my mom to come up and get us. She thanked Miss Tanner, who only nodded. Yeah, I know. Who only nodded in acknowledgement of something I didn't understand. Water's fixed, my mom said. She was trying to be happy, but I couldn't tell what was bothering her. What's wrong, Mom? I asked, but she shook her head. Nothing, sweetie. Everything's just fine. When we get home, I'm going to take a shower. You three play nicely in the living room. Understand? We agreed, and the rest of the walk home was in silence. Next scene, I believe. Yeah, this one. So my sci-fi tends to have really long chapters because it's not. Yeah, it tends to be more meandering. It has kind of these really long chapters. Next is 2 months later when the fog returned. Mom did the same routine, sealing the house up, changing and cranking the filter, and all of us sleeping together in the living room. No one got hurt last time, Mama. I remember saying. Why do we have to do this again? The fog's back, honey. Remember what I said about the fog? Never let it touch you, my younger sister Rachel said. That's right. It burns like the stove and can really hurt you if you're not careful. She smiled at us as she passed out the pieces of a chocolate bar for us to share. It comes from the cities, I said, parroting what I had heard from a neighbor while I was playing with his kid. Because of the war. My mom looked uncomfortable for a moment before she nodded in agreement. That's right. What do you all know about the war? The Chinamen attacked the other place and started a fight, my other sister, Amber, said. Not Chinamen. That's trailer talk. We say Chinese people. And yes, they attacked a little island called Taiwan, America's friend. And that meant we had to step in and stop them from bullying our friend. But why did they attack, Mom? I asked between bites of marshmallow. Why did they have to act like a bully and start everything like that? Mom sighed and shook her head, leaning back on her pillow as she had propped up against the wall. I don't know, darlings. There were just too many people in the world, I guess, and they thought they needed more room. That was a common saying back then. Too many people. And it wasn't that far off. I learned later that the war that had kicked off the prolonged crisis was far, far more complex than simple overpopulation. But she didn't care, and neither did we, sitting in our little 2-bedroom trailer, protected from toxic munitions mixed with acidic pollution that came and went like weather. All we cared about was the fog and keeping it outside. What do you think so far of the story? Like, now that you're getting a little bit more of the world building, is this too much in one go, or is this like in one chapter, or is this about right? Do you feel? Does this have a good pace to it, or is it too much? The next morning, when the sun rose, the toxic fog went with it, leaving the ground safe for us to all move around again. Yeah, it is. It's a little darker. I try and keep it a little bit light, even despite the terrible crap going on in the world. I do try and keep it a little bit lighter. There's a little bit of hope going on, you know? But, yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough. And it is. The world building, like the world that the story takes place in, is very dark and gritty. This character's life is less so. It's still rough, and he still gets the brunt of it sometimes. But generally speaking, because of his family, because of his siblings, and in particular his mother, who kind of sacrifices so much for him, he's able to become kind of a hero later on, right? And we see this. Like, I think chapter 4 or 5, he like wins the Medal of Honor, basically. And then he ends up meeting aliens. It's a whole thing. But, yeah, it's like he needed just a little bit of hope and a little bit of room to grow, and his mom gave it to him despite this world like choking the life out of her. It's kind of the feeling I'm trying to go for in these first few chapters. Anyway, all right. The next morning, when the sun rose, the toxic fog went with it, leaving the ground safe for us all to move around again. There was some kind of ruckus near the middle of the trailer park. Flashing blue and white lights meant the cops had come, and the red and white box truck meant someone was going to the hospital. We stood on our little porch, watching as Mr. Rogerson, the man that lived behind us 2 doors down, was pulled from his home in a black bag by 4 strong young men who were dressed in white uniforms. He still moved under the bag. I could see him moving under there, like my sisters did when they hid under the blankets from scary monsters in the dark. "Why is Mr. Rogerson under there, Mom?" I asked, and my mother turned around and ushered us inside. "But Mom, he's still in there. He's not dead if they think that. He's alive. See, he's moving." "Inside, now, James. Now, or so help me, I'll paddle your behind until it's blue." Your. That's the correct York, right? Y-O-U, your. Yeah, that's the right York. My mom's voice was scary, and I felt fear roll off of her like water. I closed my mouth and went inside. My mother closed the door firmly behind us. She stayed outside to watch. Yeah, let's break it up like that. We got long, mid, short. Okay. Where? That's not the right day. They're not there. Paddle your behind. Why is he under? Oh, okay. Why is Mr. Rogers under there? Thank you. It says, oh, their mom. Okay, it's confusing it. Comma. That should help. Perfect. Thank you. Yet another reason why I do this on live, because sometimes people can help me catch stuff like that. Thank you. That was very helpful. She stayed outside to watch. I, of course, moved to the broken window and pulled back the piece of cardboard so I could see. He's under his mom? What? Inside now, James. Inside now, James. Now, or so help me, I'll paddle your butt. I'll paddle your behind until it's blue. My mother's voice was scary, and I felt fear roll off her like water. Closed my mouth and went inside. My mother closed the door firmly behind us. Oh, okay. I, of course, moved to the broken window and pulled back the piece of cardboard so I could see. They loaded Mr. Rogerson, still in the black bag, still moving, into the back of their box van with the giant red X on it. Thank you. They loaded up and drove away, telling no one nothing about what had happened. A few hours later, while we were watching Sunday morning cartoons, our bishop came by. Mom wasn't particularly religious, and neither am I, but we went to church every Sunday and paid our tithing when we could, and gave service when and wherever we could. There were always people worse off than us, those without roofs over their head or food on their plates. Bishop Hawkins How can I help you? Please come in. Thank you, Sister Mary. Me and Brother Brigham can talk out here if it's okay. Might be best to keep this talk away from the children. Church people always called each other that. Brother this or sister that, even when they weren't actual brothers or sisters. As a kid, it confused me, even after my mom tried to explain it. But that was Utah for you. Mom followed them outside, and when the door closed, I snuck over to it and put my ear to the wall so I could hear better. Sister Mary, you probably saw it this morning, but Mr. Rogerson succumbed last night. The fog, I'm told. Yes, Bishop, I saw. Kids started asking questions, and I had to take care of them, else I would have offered to help. Did he pass, or did he survive? He passed. Is that the correct pass? Like, he passed away? He passed away. Yeah, that's the correct pass. Okay, good. He passed. He was an elderly gentleman, and the stress of exposure did him in quickly, from what I've been told. How did it get in? I saw the two sons come out from town. They sealed everything tighter than an oil drum. The police are still looking into it, but Brother Brigham and I suspect it might have been negligence on the part of the property manager. There was a long silence. My mother broke in a voice that I can only describe as a whisper. Mr. Greaves has treated us well, she said. Okay. Treated us well. She said it as if she were reading from something. Even at 9, I could tell she didn't mean it. They found the well on Rogerson's property exposed to the air. The metal plate that was supposed to cover it rusted through. It wasn't the fog's doing. That was time and neglect. It was the other man's voice. Something that was Greaves' clear responsibility to maintain. Brother Brigham's voice was stern, but not angry. I didn't know him well, but he was some kind of youth leader, always playing basketball with the older boys in the half-broken basketball court at the heart of the Lowlies. I wouldn't know anything about that. Poor Rogerson. He was kind to my kids. And mine too, in his way, the bishop cut in. Mary, I know Greaves has treated you poorly in the past. Hell, he's done a piss-poor job of running this place since Agnes retired. There have even been reports he's forced himself on other residents. I have to ask Mary, has he tried to do something like that to you? No. Her voice was quiet, but I didn't believe her. I didn't know what the bishop was talking about, not really, but I knew the property manager had done something, and my mother was lying about it. The bishop sighed deeply. All right, I understand. Do you? My mother asked, with more conviction in her voice than before. Do you understand what it means to be here, living in this shithole, hoping, praying that God will find a way to rescue your children from it so they don't get stuck here too? I don't mean to be rude, Bishop, but you don't know. Not really. I work a part-time job at a diner. Is that diner? Is that the correct D-I-N? Is it D-I-N-N? Diner? Diner. Just outside of town cleaning dishes. The rest of the time I'm searching for scrap, hoping to find just enough to earn a few extra dollars a day. I can't send my children to public school or get hired on as a waitress because of my social credit score is too low. Because my social credit score is too low. Did she say bussing tables? Let me see. Should I stuck here too? I work a part-time job at a diner just outside of town. Cleaning dishes, that's what I said. Okay. You need to get at least a C grade to work that job and earn schooling for your kids, and I'm D+. I can't do jobs or activities that interact with the public, for fear I'll infect them with my degenerate ways. Something caught in her throat, and the two men bowed their heads slightly. I'm sorry, Mary. I didn't mean to imply anything by what I said. I know you're working hard to increase that score. God knows you've come up from the F grades. I have an extra room in my barn we can fix up if you four need a place to stay. No, Bishop, that'd be illegal. You could get downgraded, or worse, arrested, Brigham said, his voice firm. The congregation is already at a low enough average score. We're on probation. If we lose your score, or any of the bishopric, we'll have our license revoked. The bishop sighed. I know, Dan. I know. I just hate not being able to help. If someone had concrete proof of Greaves' negligence or his bad behavior, we might be able to force Agnes's estate to hire an actual professional manager, instead of... The bishop paused for a moment, as if trying to find the right word. That man. Thank you. Yeah, I was like, it never looks right. Diner never looks right for some reason. I don't know. I wish you luck, Bishop, but I can't help you. Not with that. Let me know when the Relief Society is going to go over to help clear out Mr. Rogerson's house. Me and the kids would be happy to come over and help what we can. Understood. Rabbi Yosef will be coming tonight to remove the religious effects after his synagogue. After that, his synagogue will be handling the details. Rogerson wasn't a member of our faith, but he was a member of our community. I'll be sure to have the Relief Society president go over and offer our support. The bishop laughed lightly. She probably already has. They said their goodbyes, and Mom came inside. Her eyes were puffy and slightly red, as if she'd been crying. Are you okay, Mom? I asked, and my sister stopped playing their game and came over to see too. I'm okay. She hugged us. I just miss Mr. Rogerson. He passed away this morning. It was at that moment that I realized that what I had to do. I don't know why, but in my child mind, Greaves had become the dragon, and Rogerson was his latest victim. And it was time for the knight to start doing what he did best. And we just got like 2 more scenes here, and then I'll be done for the night. This is exhausting. I'm so tired. I think we've done a lot of good work on this, like pacing it out and changing some things. Next scene. That night, after all day helping to clean out Rogerson's house with members of the small Yazidi Jewish community who had immigrated to Vernal during the start of the war, I pretended to go to sleep. I think that's not how you spell Yazidi. Let me see. Let me look this up. Yazidi Jewish. Yazidi Jewish? Yazidism? What's Orthodox? We'll just call them Orthodox. We don't need to have Yazidic in there. That works. Yeah, thanks. I knew my mom's habits. She would go to bed only after she drank some of her favorite wine every night. Once that happened, she would be out like a light. Nothing could wake her until her alarm clock went off at 5 a.m. So, when she dragged herself into her bed in our shared room, I got up, grabbed my mom's government-issued flip camera phone, and left. The front door was tricky. I'll break that up. The front door was tricky. It tended to squeak and squeal. I was able to overcome this by lifting the latch and holding the entire mechanism steady while I opened the door. It hurt my hands, and was hard work for someone as small as I was back then. I remember that door felt like it weighed 1,000,000 pounds, though it was as thin as cardboard and made of stuff only slightly more durable. Once I was past that hurdle, I was sure I was safe. I turned the phone's flashlight on, and a small golden beam cut through the pitch black between trailer homes. Then I began walking. The Lowleys was set up in a circle with different roads or spokes. Yeah, exactly. The lowlies was set up in a circle with different roads or spokes that ran directly off the circle. Each spoke connected to a central wheel that then led either down to the river to fish or swim, or north towards Vernal proper, up and out of the lowlies. We lived. There we go. We lived on one of those spokes, and all of us low social credit kids, whose moms and dads were D's or low C's, and even the occasional F, played in the large green space at the center of that roundabout that connected the spokes. At the center of that roundabout? The roundabout. Had to lift it up in order to get it. Yeah, exactly. And then if you didn't hold it just right, it would make this god-awful noise. Just absolutely terrible. When I got home, my mom was sitting... There was a half-cracked basketball court, a sand pit that had to have once been a volleyball court, looking back on it, and a single community building where Greaves did his business and kept his books. When I got home, my mom was sitting on the couch, waiting for me. "Where were you?" I handed her the phone. "What is this?" She looked through the pictures. I had taken dozens of them, but I wasn't sure if anything on them were actually going to be useful. She had to turn the phone upside down a few times to see the picture better. That asshole, again, forgive the swearing. She realized I was standing there and frowned. "You, bed, now. We'll talk about this in the morning." "But Mom, the bishop..." "No, bed, now, or you'll be grounded for a week." Not that she could enforce a grounding. She and I both knew that. But the threat still got to me. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I left the door slightly ajar and heard her dialing a phone number. "Hello, Bishop Hawkins? Yes, I have some pictures that might be useful." That's the end of the chapter. I'm trying to go for grimdark world, but hopeful situation. Does that make sense? Am I hitting that right chord, or is it too dark? Do you think, Fidget? Here, we could probably switch over to Discord. You think I am hitting that right note? That's good. Well, I think that's going to be it for me today. I'm pretty tired. Oh yeah, very much so. He very much wants to be a knight in shining armor, right? But what he actually is a farm boy in the middle of nowhere, who just has a really strong sense of right and wrong. And it isn't until he gets into his first armored suit that he realizes he looks and can act like a knight. So it's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm so tired, man. It's like 7 o'clock. I'm ready. I usually go to bed around 9. So right now I'm like taking a shower, getting ready for bed, eating dinner, that kind of thing. So I'm going to head out. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you got a lot done too while we were doing this. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.